Good evening. We are alive. How are you today? This is Mike the Patriot coming to you live again for a second broadcast. It is approximately 6:57 p.m. on 3/23/2021, the year of great victory. That's what 2021 is going to be. I hope you're having a wonderful evening. As you're jumping on, say hi where you're watching from. I'm going to have a special guest today, but before we get to that, let me just remind you that you can find me either on Rumble or on the YouTubes. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, please hit the subscribe button, the bell, and share this video from there. Appreciate it. Hit the little like button also. That helps us spread around. And now I'm on Telegram. And check me out there. That's my link right there. Should take you straight to it. The t.me/Patriot Mike Thoughts. That will take you straight there. Everything I'm doing right now, everything that goes into my shows, everything is over there. All my thoughts and a lot of stuff that doesn't make it in there because I got to cram so much stuff into a few minutes. So here's the deal. I've got a special guest. I want to introduce to you just a second. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. I'll be watching the conversation so that I'll pop them up and maybe we can get them answered for you. So I want to introduce to you my friend Matthew Smith, who is running for the Pettis County Health Board. Is that correct? Pettis County Health Board?
Pettis County Health Center Board of Trustees.
There it is. And it's important that we do local stuff. You guys need to grab a hold of your local stuff all over the country because that's how we're going to take this country back, is get control of the local stuff, and then we can work our way up. So anyways, Matthew, tell us about yourself and what you're running for and why you're running.
I'm running for the Pettis County Health Center Board of Trustees. I went to the meeting they had back last July and watched the circus that they had where they passed their mask rule after trying to make it a ban with two of the members voting for it. One of them was absent, one of them abstained, and the chairman said, well, since it's not a tie, I don't need to vote. So 2 out of 5 people voted for mask rule, and they passed it. And that's when I realized that we had a serious leadership problem and decided at that point that someone needed to run against the people on the board that were coming up for re-election that actually weren't voted into that office to begin with.
So you're saying it won't voted into that office to begin with. I don't mean to interrupt you, but what do you mean by that?
Well, to the best of anyone's knowledge, for probably the last 30 years, all the people on that board were either appointed or filed and ran unopposed. So none of them have actually been voted in by the people of Pettis County to serve on that board.
I see. I understood that also, but I wanted to make sure you made that clear. Tell us about your qualifications and what do you think you can add to the board?
Well, I've been a resident of Pettis County most of my life. I have a bachelor's in business administration, a master's in education. I've worked at Bothwell Regional Hospital in the emergency room as a ward clerk for 4 years, so I've been around the medical field, worked with nurses and doctors, know that it's a difficult job for them. What was the other part of the question?
Well, your qualifications and what you plan on doing, what you can bring to the board.
What I think I can bring to the board is a more common sense approach and a different point of view than the one that the 5 people on the board currently seem to share. So we need a little more diversity on the board to bring ideals and oppose so that you get better input and more views and represent the people of Pettis County and the actual views of the whole county versus just the one narrow-minded view that seems to be prevalent on the board at this time.
So what's the narrow-minded view, in your opinion? The
obvious one is that they tried to make a mandate for a mask rule, but at the same time, there doesn't seem to be anything else being focused on other than COVID, because when you look at their website, there's most of the programs say their sites are under construction. So there needs to be a focus back on the community as a whole versus just focusing on the COVID rule. They all seem to be more like-minded as far as they tilt to the left of the spectrum politically, where we need to be more to the middle or even more conservative, because this county is probably 70% conservative.
Yeah, we are the heart of America in central Missouri where we're at. So there's 3 positioning open up on the board, and there's 5 members on the board. Is that correct?
Correct. There's 5
Okay.
spots, and 3 of them are up for election this time.
And how many people are running for this board position? Do you know?
There are 10 people total running. 1 is running for re-election. 2 of the 3 that were currently on there decided not to run. So you have 1 incumbent and 9 people that have never been on the board.
So basically, we're going to get 2 new people on the board no matter what, even if
Correct.
the incumbent wins. And so we're hoping to get 3 people on there. We have several other people running besides yourself that we're supporting. And any of them would be fine in my book, including yourself. What makes you stand out among maybe the other? I mean, I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but what makes you stand out better than them? What makes what separates you from the pack?
Well, I actually have an education background. I have some medical background. I've worked in the business. So I'm a more rounded candidate. I'm not just medically or business oriented. I've actually experienced multiple phases of society as far as education, medical, and business.
So what different approach? I mean, what do you see? What do you see you can change right off the bat? What's the first thing you want to change?
First thing I want to do is I want to open up the open sessions of the meeting and have them webcast so that the community is more involved in what's going on and sees how the board is trying to benefit their lives. Because at the present time, board meetings are not open to the public unless you take the time to show up. A lot of people work, don't have that time. I'd also like to see the board meetings move to a later time in the afternoon or evening, early evening, to where people that work your standard 9 to 5 job is actually got the opportunity to attend the board meetings, because the health board has a lot of influence over an individual's life that they don't even realize a lot of the time.
Especially small businesses that are licensed to the health board. I mean, they make a big impact on those businesses, and some of that's good. I mean, we don't want to eat at places that are nasty, and they can kind of they do that job too.
Right, but you don't want your business owners to have to close early if they want to sit in on the board meeting or pay attention. The other thing that you can do is also record the sessions and allow people to be able to log in and see them later. And then we need to also start posting board minutes so that people can pull them up and read through the board minutes to see what was done.
They're not doing that now currently on their website?
Not that I've been able to find. Of course, the website is awfully difficult to navigate. So I think the website should be updated, and all the sites that say that they're under construction, we need to work on that. And then we also need to set dates that the sections are back up and functioning. They need to have under construction, completion expected, just like MoDOT does whenever they're working on your highway. They try to give you an idea how long it'll take before it's repaired. Well, I think the health board should also be setting goals for when each one of these sections of their site is going to be back up and informative.
It kind of seems like maybe they're not even attempting to do anything with the website. It's just kind of there. I've looked at it a little bit too. So you talked about the meeting. A lot of this fire started over the summer when our local community, and I'm talking to everybody out there, a lot of people around your nose, we stood up as a community and told our health board, told our elected officials, no, we don't need a mask mandate in central Missouri because a handful of people might be sick. And they tried to force it upon us. And like you said, we'll cover that in just a second about the vote being kind of crazy. And we kind of defeated that. We kind of pushed back on that. And I could say we kind of won because we got our elected officials not to support it. And we found out that the health board really doesn't have that much power. Would that kind of sum up what happened over the summer?
Well, they had to have the support of the Pettis County commissioners and the city of Sedalia city council. They had to enact enforcement regulations so that the police department and sheriff's department would actually act on things. And when they found out that they weren't going to get that support, they passed the rule, is basically what they did. It's not that I'm totally against people wearing a mask. I just don't think it needs to be forced onto people. I think that as a nation, we should be intelligent enough to make health decisions for ourselves, decide whether wearing the mask is right for us or we accept the risk of consequences of not wearing one. I think that, that should be the individual's right and our decision to do so. And granted, there are circumstances, if you have a loved one that's, say, high risk or has an immune deficiency or something, yeah, I can see that person wearing a mask, but I don't think that they should be forced to wear one.
And, and out of respect, if you were going over to like you said, a family member, a friend's house that had a risk, had problems, maybe you put a mask on for them, out of respect for them. But that's what you're, and I agree with you 100%. Sometimes I come off pretty hard in my views, but I'm very libertarian on this. You want to wear a mask, you want to wear 6 masks, you want to hide in a bubble, I don't really care. But I don't want somebody telling me you have to. But I mean, what if they reversed this and said nobody can wear a mask? I mean, if they have the authority,
right?
So,
in actuality, before coronavirus, you couldn't walk into a bank wearing a mask because they'd come in and take you out in handcuffs. But now that they've decided that you should wear one, you're not supposed to go into the bank without one and hide your face. I mean, perfect cover.
Yeah, right. You have an excuse now. I'm surprised people haven't taken more. Maybe they have. That's another argument around the country. What's been going on? I don't know. Chase that rabbit.
Who's to say people didn't take advantage of that all summer long with all the protests and stuff that went on and the damage? I mean, the government basically told them, "Hey, put your mask on so you can hide your identity and make it harder for us to find you while you're committing illegal acts."
And all over the country that happened, but we didn't. We didn't
Not
face much of
that.
Yeah. We didn't face much of that in this area, but in the bigger cities, Kansas City, St. Louis, they kind of faced that, but we didn't get much of it here. And while you guys are watching, the folks that are watching, if you want to ask a question of Matthew about the health board and about anything, if you got a question that comes up, go ahead and type that in there, and we'll see if we get some questions answered. Is there anything you want to specifically say? What's on your mind? What's on your heart? I mean, have at it. The floor is yours.
I think the Pettis County Health Board needs to get back to paying more attention to people over their mental health because that's been neglected from COVID. I think we need to develop and have better programs that maybe support new parents, training, infant care, such as child CPR and infant CPR, because I know from personal experience, my sister had a grandbaby and it just come home from the hospital, and had my sister not known what to do and perform infant CPR, my great niece may not be here now. So there are a lot of things that the health board could be doing besides just paying attention to COVID that I don't think they're doing. Drug awareness, we need to be back onto the programs for drug abuse and alcohol abuse and that stuff, because that's way up, and it's all due to depression over the COVID and isolation that's been going on. from the COVID rules. So there's a lot of things that have been neglected that COVID has increased the issues with, that we need to get back to focusing on helping people just besides dealing with COVID.
So they're not doing any of that at the health department currently?
I don't know that they aren't doing anything. I know that they're not focusing. That's not where their attention is. And if you ask me what my evidence is, it's going on to their website and seeing the sites that deal with these type of things being listed as under construction. The last time I went on their site, they didn't indicate what the upcoming, and this was at the end of February, they didn't have on the last day of February what training and what stuff they were doing for March up yet. I mean, what good does it do if you can't plan ahead and figure out what's coming up, so that if you are interested in doing something, it's not available for you to figure it out?
So what you're saying is that the health board should offer these classes, maybe for a small fee or something. If you have to pay somebody to come in and do the class, but have a schedule, maybe a calendar on their website that you could go in and sign up for this, or see what's coming up, or attend the board meetings or any special meetings or anything like that.
Right. This is part of what the health board's supposed to be doing, is community service and helping community health by having these programs. That's part of their mission.
Well, that makes perfect sense. I hadn't even thought about that. I just looked at it. As far as all I knew about the health board was that they set the standards for the places that are licensed through the health board, like restaurants and hotels and stuff like that have to get their licensing through the health board, and that they got all this control and power through the state of emergency and started these edicts. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing I knew about. I didn't know classes or anything like that. So
no, they do so much more than just that. Birth certificates. If you want to get a waiver for immunization for religious exemptions, they handle stuff like that. There's a lot more that they do. Granted, I still have stuff to learn myself, but as I keep getting more involved in the health board, I'm finding more stuff out, which finding this information isn't really easy because they're not keeping their site up to date.
So we have a question here. Someone wants to know, when is the mandate going to be lifted?
Well, in Pettis County, there is no mandate. It's a rule, one which I believe should be reviewed. And I think that when they put the mandate or rule into effect, they came from it from the wrong approach. They took it from an authoritarian rule saying you had to wear one, whereas they should have stated it's a strong recommendation and listed the reasons why you should wear a mask, as well as the benefits and what the risk of wearing a mask is. A lot of people don't realize that when you wear a mask constantly, you're rebreathing your own bacteria and gases, and it's not all expelled, so you're at a higher risk catching bacterial pneumonia, which can kill you as well.
I had a question just pop in my head and goes straight out. I told you I was going to have some brain farts before this was over with. So Joe Biden moment. Bear with me. So it was talking about the mask mandates. Mm-hmm. In some cities, they have actual real mandates with the force of law behind them. Kansas City, right. Springfield, stuff like that. But in Missouri, and for those of you watching from other states, in Missouri, they never put a statewide mandate. The governor never did that. The governor kind of tried to walk down the middle of the road and say it's on the local level. They have to decide. And he didn't say no, and he didn't say yes. He just kind of went down the middle of the road. And so here in Pettis County, they passed their rule, but it never got the force of law behind it. So therefore, go ahead.
Because the county commissioners and the city council of Sedalia or the other city councils did not uh, enact the rules and instruct their police officer to actually enforce it. So that's why the rule is just actually a suggestion or a strong recommendation. Other than the health board calling up businesses and saying, hey, we got a complaint, you need to do this, this, and this, and acting as if there was actually some kind of force that could be done to them, there's not really no meat or bone to that rule. There's no muscle to it.
The only thing that I can see where there would be some muscles, if they are licensed to the health board, they can hold that license over their head. But other than that, there's probably not a whole lot they can do.
Right. And then you can appeal that to the health board. The health board would have their vote, which we know how the health board, but then you also have the opportunity to appeal that to the county commissioners, and the county commissioners can overrule that.
Right. And here's an example of that. Beverly from Springfield says that they don't have a mandate in Springfield. They actually have an ordinance that was passed. So see, an ordinance has to be passed by elected officials. Therefore, you have a record. If you don't like what it is, you can vote next time around and change that.
Right. Ordinance is different, especially if it was done by their city council or county commissioners, somebody that actually can pass that ordinance. But the board can pass things, but if they don't get law enforcement or the county commissioners or the city council support, then it doesn't have the same effect.
Right. Here's another good question, or a point out. It says some private properties have mandated you can't go in without a mask. I assume they mean that's private property, right?
Correct. And that's their right. It's the same as if somebody comes to your house, you can require them to do certain things before they can enter your private residence. So if a business elects to do that, they're also accepting the backlash if somebody doesn't want to do business with them for having that rule on there. As the same as somebody that doesn't have a mask rule is accepting that people that want to wear a mask or afraid or whatever reason won't enter their business because they don't feel safe because you're not enforcing a mask rule. So private property is a different, or if a corporation, I personally work for a company that says that when I walk into the building, I have to wear a mask. When I go to my desk, I have to wear one. When I sit down, I can take it off. When I get up, I need to wear one for the safety of everybody around, and that's their rule. Well, they're paying me, so that is their right. I'm their employee during those hours. When I walk out the door, then I'm free to do as I wish. They make suggestions, but that's all they can do is suggest how I act once I leave work.
And you still have a choice in this matter. This is the great thing about it. Whether it's entering a private business or going to your job, you still have a choice because you can choose not to.
But you got to be willing to pay the consequences for not doing it.
And they got to be willing to pay the consequences for forcing that on the people, because I walked into a business recently, tried to walk into a business here in Central Missouri, and they said, you have to wear a mask to come in. I said, well, I don't wear masks, so I appreciate it. And turned around and walked out with my money in my pocket. And I went to their competitor and I bought something. So you have that's called freedom. That's called liberty. Everybody has the liberty, and you have the liberty to decide how you're going to interact with that liberty.
Right. So, and that's what I support, is your freedom to choose what's best for you and whether or not you want to wear a mask or not. Some people will wear a mask to go into business because they need to. They may not like it. They go to the next business that's not really enforcing it, and they won't wear the mask there. So it's just a matter of having the choice, and you have to make a decision what's best for you and whether or not dealing with that business is worth wearing a mask or not wearing one.
Now, here's a question that's kind of on this subject, and this person's asking about if you have a medical condition and you can't wear a mask, do your doctor. There's some places you can't go without a mask, and I think that still applies just to what we're saying. Some places may not accept that as an excuse.
Well, they may not, and if you're not able to wear one, then basically they're saying, I can't accept your business because you can't comply. So they lose in the end because you're not spending your money there. I know that it's not something that people want to hear, but they have that right as a private business or even a corporation.
And even like regretfully, here a few weeks ago, I had to go to the VA clinic. Well, you ain't walking into a government installation without sticking the face diaper on, so I had to suck it up, cupcake, put the face diaper on if I wanted to go.
Well, at the same time, going to a medical facilities, you have to understand you are in a area where there is a high risk, and there are other individuals that are at high risk. And I'm not completely opposed to saying a hospital or a medical facility saying we need you to wear a mask for the safety of people that may have immunity compromised, so that there is a higher risk for people involved in those locations that may not have the same choice that you do.
Right. And there's a couple more questions on here. And I don't know, I know we're on this math subject because that's the questions people are asking. And if you want to inject anything else, just go ahead and do so. That people are saying that it falls under handicap laws. I don't think I think under this emergency deal, I don't think you're going to get that one. I don't think you can use that. I think they got cover because they got the government on their side, basically. Right. And somebody's asking that if it's an ordinance, can they enforce it? I think we've already answered that too, because
an ordinance is a law in essence that was passed by a duly elected board that does have the right to legislate, such as the city council, county commissioner, state legislature. Those are the type of entities that can introduce or pass ordinances.
So basically what I get a feel from you is you're going to take a more libertarian approach to the health board instead of a more cram it down your face kind of you do it my way or else approach.
Right. Basically a more common sense approach to and more approach that says, hey, let's take a look at and see what really makes sense, and let's apply these rules that need to be applied in situations that are more appropriate than just a blanket. You're walking down the street, you need to have a mask on when there's nobody around you.
Right.
That type of stuff. Because in some of the cities, you see people in their car by themselves, driving along, wearing their mask. And you sit there and go, really?
That makes no sense. So, right. But they're scared to death. They're scared to death of that somebody's going to say something to them or the police are going to get them or something like that. They got people really scared. And people are actually legitimately scared of this virus that's going around, which is perfectly fine with me. If someone wants to wear a mask, I'm not going to, they come into my business all the time and I got the sign on there that says, resist the mask, resist the mandatory mask. Now that's the difference.
Right.
And they come in and they say, oh, is it okay if I have a mask on? And I'm like, hey, I'm not wearing one. As long as you're okay with me not wearing one, I don't care what you wear. I mean, as long as you got clothes on, we're good. So.
Yeah. Yeah. My thought is that, be reasonable. If you're going to be around somebody that can die from this, that because they have some form of cancer or COPD or something like that, be respectful towards them. But you're teenagers. It makes no sense to me why we're having children wear masks in school when children aren't as adversely affected. I mean, I think I maybe heard of one teenager possibly passing from COVID. it has a 99.7% survival rate. People we need to be careful around are people over 60 that have other conditions to go along with it. There's always that individual that you wouldn't suspect has a problem with it, but people get the flu and pass away from that. I mean, it's a tragic thing when it's your family member or somebody you care about. That's always going to be a hot topic, and everybody is always going to be sad. I mean, I've lost both of my parents. Um, both of my parents, my father especially, if he were still alive, yeah, I'd probably be wearing a mask more than what I am. But you got to use common sense. It's not just a blanket rule that needs to be applied and then enforced and forced down people, because then you're taking people's liberties and their freedom away.
Well, let me ask you this to kind of change the subject a little bit. What are your thoughts on the way that the health board counted uh, or counted of positive tests and all that stuff? There was some controversy there over the last year about how they figured those numbers. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what I understand is the last board meeting, they apparently figured out why their numbers weren't matching with the state, and it had to do with people being tested for the antibodies, antigen test. Whereas if you tested positive for the antigen test, the county here was counting it as a positive COVID, and the state was separating them. So I don't know whether that's true or not, and nobody will really be able to figure that out unless you are on the board and can actually get a hold of more substantial data to figure that out.
Get a hold of the raw numbers instead of just whatever
Right.
numbers that they're putting out there, and maybe in a scenario like this, and if hopefully we don't have to do this anymore very much longer, but in a scenario like this, you could give both counts, not just a
Right.
total, but you could say this is where they come from.
Right. And that's where I think the board needs to be more transparent and show how they're coming up with the numbers and be more detail oriented. Whereas instead of giving just general numbers and stuff, let's look at how you're getting the information, and I think it needs to be presented better, more clearly.
It seemed to me like there was well, it's just something I noticed. I'm just going to say this. This isn't coming from you. This is coming from me. Uh, it seems to me like when they first started counting the numbers, it was every day. They was putting out something every single day, every single day, every single day. But as we started coming on the back side of this, it was every 2 or 3 days, and then it was every week, and the time frame kept spreading out so that number stayed big. Did you kind of catch that? It's more. It wasn't about giving out information. It was about giving out fear and control.
Yeah. Probably. I don't know the purpose of it. Maybe it was just because it was slowing down, but I think if you're really paying attention and thinking about it, I think you would have caught on to the fact that they were spreading it out, building the numbers up, making them look higher than what they were. But
I don't want you to go out on a limb and get in trouble by saying something. That was me saying that. That's Mike Cook's commentary and opinion, and not the guests or anybody else. So
yeah, I don't know the whole motivation behind that, but once again, it goes back to being more transparent, explaining why they started changing the way they were doing things. Getting them to share information, unless it's what the narrative they're wanting to fit, is not always an easy thing to do.
right. Instead of just being transparent, being honest, and saying this is the way it is, and just putting the numbers out there. We tested this many people today, and this many people were positive. We have this many total. These are the kind of tests. They just seem to be. I don't know. The numbers just never really seem to work for me. But
Well, you know what they say about arithmetic. Numbers don't lie, but liars figure.
Yeah,
So,
right. Figures don't
you
lie,
know,
but liars figure. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can play with the numbers all different ways and make the answers come up however you want them if you play with them long enough. I mean,
Yeah,
but
we've all filled out our taxes before, right?
oh yeah,
Anyways, anything else you'd like to add? I mean, why? Any other thoughts you have that you want to cover? Or
I think the board was put in a hard position. I think that things probably could have been handled uh, better. I think that if we'd had people with more diverse background that from different parts of the community um, with different perspectives than the ones we had, that maybe we'd have gotten better results. I think that if when the mask mandate come out, instead of trying to mandate, like I said, we'd come up with recommendations and stated why. I think you got more people involved in wearing a mask or more cooperations with the mask versus this is what you have to do. We're going to make a rule or a mandate that you have to. I think if you'd come out and been reasonable and said, hey, we got a situation here. We're not totally 100% sure on the whole effect. We want to come out with a strong recommendation that you wear a mask to protect yourself, your family, your loved ones, your neighbor, other people. We're really urging you to do that. Um, these are the benefits. These are the circumstances in which you should wear one. I think we'd have gotten a lot different results. I don't think people would have divided into the two camps, the oh you got to have a mask, or the people that you don't, I'm not going to wear a mask at all. I think you'd got more of a mixture, and people and better, more common sense would have prevailed instead of this division that we wound up with.
that so instead of mandating an iron-fisted one way, my way or the highway, educate,
Mm-hmm.
inform, and educate so that people can make the proper logical decision. And if you really are for, hey, this is the best way to go, then say it, put it
Right,
out there, put the
right,
information out there, let everybody know instead
yeah.
of just, I mean,
Let
once you,
people make informed decisions. Don't try to tell them how to do things. Don't tell them how to live their life, because we're American. Americans by law, by nature, are people who will resist authority. I mean,
well, that's true.
that's
I mean,
why.
it started with
That's
T.
why we separated from Great Britain or England. We rebelled. We're that way. In Missouri, the motto is "Show me." You know,
Right. Show me the numbers. And the problem, and of course, in this particular case, like you said at the beginning of this, 99.6 for kids, and not really much worse than that for adults, unless you
no,
get up to the an elderly with a whole bunch of
right,
aggravating issues that
right. Your
most
nursing home
people
people, yeah,
most people
I
survive this thing. So
yeah. And there are some people that didn't, that were surprised that, but you have that with the flu. How many of the people maybe caught pneumonia because of wearing a mask? Did they track any of that stuff, or had complications from other? What were the underlying complications to all these people with COVID? They didn't report any of that either.
well, here's another thing that changed the subject a little bit. That maybe you could touch on this, how you feel the board should react in this situation. But somebody's asking what your thoughts are on the vaccine, and I think it's a
I
pretty good
think
question.
I think that you need to make a decision as an individual on the vaccine. I don't believe that it needs to be mandated. I think that each person needs to make a decision. You need to research the vaccine yourself. You need to find the best information you can, someplace that you trust, figure out whether the vaccine's right for you. Also, look into how the vaccine is, what went into that vaccine. I have not at this point made a decision for myself whether I am or am not going to get a vaccine. I will have to make that decision if and when I have an opportunity to get it. And I will be asking at that time what brand of vaccine that they're proposing I take. I can absolutely tell you that there's one brand that I am not going to take for personal ethical reasons. I just don't believe that is the type of vaccine that I would take. Um, the other two, one of them I would probably be more inclined to take if I'm going to take it, but we don't know all the side effects. Today I just was reading, and granted it's on Facebook, and you have to take that with a grain of salt, that somebody took the vaccine in Kansas City and passed away. Granted, that's one person out of how many people that's taken it.
And you don't know what their condition was before they took it either.
True. So there are a lot of factors. You have to make the decision whether it's right for you. The process in which they made this vaccine, the length, you don't know what the long-term side effects are for this vaccine. What will ultimately happen? I think that if you're somebody that is, say, in a nursing home or a high risk person, that if you catch COVID, that you should probably be more inclined to take the vaccine. But if you're somebody that is younger, more healthy, less likely to die from it, maybe it's not the right decision for you, but you need to decide that for yourself.
I couldn't agree with you more.
I'm kind of at that age where I'm close to being more of a high risk with, of course, my weight, as you can see, but I don't smoke. I don't have respiratory issues. I do have high blood pressure. So, I do have some factors in there, and I'm approaching that age where they say, well, you're at a higher risk because of your age. I'm starting to approach that. So, I have to consider it, but by and large, I've made it through this without wearing a mask most of the time, and I'm not really concerned about whether I catch COVID or not. My sister got it, my son got it, and from what I understand, both of them had mild cases. So maybe there's a genetic factor in there that some people are predisposed or less likely to have. Maybe there's a genetic factor in there that they haven't figured out yet that makes some people more likely to have a more severe reaction to catching it.
It sounds to me like there's a whole lot of maybes involved in all this.
There is, and that's why I don't think mandating a mask or a vaccine and stuff is the appropriate approach there, because there are so many variables, and they sit there and tell you, well, we're not for sure. The last time I watched Dr. Fauci on, he goes, well, even if you get the vaccine, you're probably going to need to wear a mask, or actually two masks, for another year.
So why get the vaccine?
Why get the vaccine? Or if you do, isn't the vaccine supposed to mean you're not supposed to need the mask?
That's what I would assume. Maybe it's, I don't know. I don't want to chase in the conspiracy theories, but
right. I mean, I honestly don't. I don't know that they are 100% certain, and they're just throwing darts at a board, is what it looks like from all the stuff, the way they flip flop back and forth on what they're doing.
Well, I think the problem there is that you get involved in the politics of it and not the science of it. We're study the science, but you're not letting the science dictate. You're letting the politics dictate, and that's where you get the flip floppity, because you got to worry about what voter's going to vote for you. But if you stick straight down the line, this is how it is. Then
live your life on principles.
Principles are important.
Yeah, and basically, I may mess up at some point in time. If I do, I'll apologize and admit to it. But I'm always going to do what I think is right.
And
So
one of the things, I think you mentioned this in the round table thing we did, is a willingness to change. If you take a path and you take a route, you go down that route, and it doesn't turn out to be the right thing to do, change,
right,
go a different direction.
say, hey, we understand we got this wrong. Let's take a different approach. And
And
just remember, it's all about perspective for each individual person. Each person's perspective. To one person, wearing a mask is more important. To this person over here, it's more important that the health board focus on mental health. Over on another, you may have somebody that's more, their perspective is that we need to do more to educate new parents and provide training to help infants and newborns. So there's always a perspective. You have to understand the other person's perspective and where they're coming from when you're handling situations.
and somebody makes a pretty good comment here. It says, and I think this applies to a lot, that once you take the vaccine, you can't go back. And you can apply that to a lot of things, a lot of decisions you make medically. Once you make that decision, there's no going back from that decision, no undoing that decision. So those are big decisions that someone has to make, in my opinion.
In this situation, there are two things that once it happens, you can't change. Once you catch COVID, you can't necessarily change the outcome of what's going to happen. You may have a little influence over depending upon what treatments you're able to get or whatever they give you. And once you take that vaccine, you can't undo it. So if there's something that's going to happen down the road, it's going to happen. You can't stop it.
That's kind of a scary thought when you look at it that way, but I made up my mind.
It may be beneficial, but what if there are some adverse side effects that we won't see for 5 or 10 years?
And here's the thing, the doctor insisted that my mom get the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And so she did. And let's say it's 20 years that all of a sudden people start growing a foot out of their forehead or some kind of craziness, Well, in 20 years, my mom's going to be with Jesus. So,
and in that situation, our citizens that are at that point where if something's going to be 5 or 10 years down the road, their quality of life by having the security of knowing they're not going to get COVID or possibly die from the COVID. Yeah, at that point, the risk is acceptable. But to be putting a vaccine in a 20-year-old
or a kid
is a totally different situation. I mean, there's been instances in the past where birth defects, they've given vaccines to young adults, and then when they go to have children, there's birth defects. You don't know those things won't happen with this vaccine because it's so new.
Right.
The process in which they did it is new.
So there's a whole lot of variables there. So anyways, that was a good discussion. We've been on here almost 40 minutes. Is there anything else that you want to add? Why should they vote for you? When is the election? Just discuss that real quick.
The election's on April the 6th, but early voting has started already. You can go down to the Pettis County Courthouse Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and vote now if you want to. If you don't want to have to wait until April the 6th, if you've already made up your mind, you can go vote. What I can promise you is that I'll listen to you. You may not like the decision I make, but I will make the best decision I can with the most information I can. I will do my best to represent everybody in the county as a whole and make the best decisions for the county as a whole.
Well, there you have it. Well, Matt, I appreciate you. Appreciate you coming on with me. And everybody go out and vote for Matthew Smith at the Pettis County, Pettis County Health Board? What is it called? Health Board Directors? What is it called?
County Health Center Board of Trustees.
There you go. That's what it is. Go out and vote for him. And we need to take 3 of those seats back to wrestle control back, because local control is where it is the most important. If we can take control of our health boards, and if we can take control of our school boards and our city councils and our counties, we can take control of this country again. And
yeah, you got to start with the foundation, and that's where the foundation is, your local municipal elections.
Somebody says, I think early voting boxes on street corners sucks. Well, let me tell you something. We don't have that in Missouri. And our Pettis County clerk, Nick Lestrada, is an awesome dude, does one heck of a job with our elections, are straight up 100% honest and above board. So we're blessed to be in Central Missouri, God's country. So Matthew, I'm gonna wish you adieu. Have a great day. Everybody, I appreciate you jumping on. And I'm gonna drop out of your ear. Still gonna be there for a second, okay? So just hang on.
Right.
And I'm gonna sign off. And you guys, I really appreciate everybody jumping on, saying hi to me, and watching my show. I'll be live tomorrow with my regularly scheduled show at 8:30 a.m. Don't miss it. Please like, follow, and share. People need to hear what's going on around this country. You guys have a great, wonderful day.